Suicide, motherfuckers.
Shouts to Dome.
We're all in.
Fuck it up.
Do it again.
Rumble, YouTube family, what's good? What's happening? Hey, I'm coming here. It's a little bit late. Just bear with me. So, I wanted to read you a preface to a book. This is going to be part of an Onslaught series that I'm going to provide to you every once in a while. I'm going to read a chapter of this book. It's not much, right? Only 150 pages, 145, something like that. And this is the name of the book, The Ish Onslaught by Dr. Tony Martin, a professor from Wellesley College. And this is a testimony of his incident in 1993 with the same group that many are knowing about and having issue with, right? And so, without further ado, let's get right to it. The Ish Onslaught preface. In January 1993, on the eve of the Ish onslaught against me for teaching that ooze were implicated in the African slave trade, I already had some interest in Black Ooish relations. It is difficult not to, if one teaches African American history. I had also done some research on Ooish refugee immigration to Trinidad in the 1930s and the 40s. This research was facilitated by the cordial cooperation of Ooish informants in two Caribbean countries. United States Ooze encountered in the course of the research displayed the gamut of reactions from friendliness to suspicion to hostility. The idea of a black man turning up at an Ooish archive to research Ooish history proved unnerving to some. What was that? There we go. On the other hand, Ooish scholars are a familiar sight at Black archives, not only as researchers, but sometimes even as staff archivists. One of the most prestigious of the Black archival repositories, the Moreland Springer Collection of Howard University, is actually part named after an Ooh. At one of the Ooish archives I visited, the lady in charge characteristically put me through the appropriate litmus test. And this is what she says. Do you know Len Jeffries? He was a big name in the 80s. Anyway, do you know Len Jeffries? She asked. With the mien of one presiding over an inquisition. I wonder if knowing Len, and this is what he says, I wonder if knowing Len Jeffries automatically disqualifies me from using these archives. I mused to myself. But like George Washington, I could not tell a lie. So I was constrained to be forthcoming. Yes, I know him, I replied. We're professional colleagues. I've known him for many years. She was visibly taken aback by this answer, and I feared the worst. She regained her composure, however, and the interrogation continued. And then she says, have you ever read The Secret Relationship Between Blacks and Ooze? I've heard of it, I replied truthfully. But no, I haven't read it. Funny enough, though, I passed someone selling it on the sidewalk just a few minutes ago. Pause. So, if you don't know, back in, it's actually still to this day, the Nation of Islam, they are on the streets and they sell final call newspapers. And every once in a while, I don't know if they still do it, but they'll sell a copy called The Secret Relationship Between Blacks and Ooze. It was big back in the day, back in the 80s into the 90s, or I think just into the 90s. But I remember seeing them selling it. And they still sell the final call out in New York City and Harlem and everything. So, anyway, we're back on. My reading of the book was still a few months into the future, but already I could not fathom what all the fuss was about. If it is established, I suggested to her, that white people enslaved Africans, and if ooze were an important part of white society, then why should anyone be upset by a book that illustrates the ooish role in the slave trade? My innocent question now appears to have been imbued with prophetic insight, or maybe it was simply a case of famous last words. The fact that I cannot remember with precision what her response was in an otherwise clearly recollected conversation probably reflects the imprecision of her answer. She could not come up with the coherent rationale for her denunciation of the book. As I reflect in hindsight on that conversation, with the benefit of 6 months of the Ooish onslaught to guide me, it seems as if the major Ooish agencies issued edicts, as it were. Then the Uish rank and file simply fall in line. Theirs not to make reply, theirs not to reason why, theirs but to do and die. The power of the Uish leadership over their constituency is impressive indeed, the presence of some dissenting voices notwithstanding. But our conversation was not yet over. It was to take an even more unexpected turn. Have you heard of the Crown Heights riots? She inquired, referring to the tensions between blacks and Hasidic Ooze communities in Brooklyn, New York. A confrontation had been triggered by the unpunished killing of young Gavin Cato and the maiming of his cousin Angela Cato by a Hasidic vehicle as the children played on the sidewalk in front of their house. I remember when this happened. He didn't say that. That's me talking right now, but back into it. Played in front of his house. A Jewish student, Yankel Rosenbaum, was killed in the ensuing scuffles. Yankel Rosenbaum was doing research right here, she said. He was in here every day, reading the files just like you. He sat at the same table where you have placed your materials. Even with my own personal Jewish onslaught still many months into the future, this revelation proved a sobering one to me. And as I ponder it with the benefit of a tempestuous hindsight, I wonder what inscrutable fate brought me to this archive, to this conversation, to Yenko Rosenbaum's table at a time when my authorship of a book called The Uish Onslaught would have seemed a bizarre improbability. I could not know then that I would ere long be plunged into an intense reading of Uish and Black Uish history, covering many lands and historical periods as I sought to bring my situation a more wide ranging perspective. The onslaught of the last 6 months now threatens to turn me into an expert on Uish history. For that, I must thank the purveyors of intolerance with whom I have had to do battle of late. What I offer here is an involved yet detached look at the onslaught against me, from my unique vantage point as both intended victim and historian. This is written in the heat of battle. Perhaps time, further study, and more reflection may either modify or enrich the analysis offered here, but the immediacy of analysis can only be captured now. That's quite telling. Over the last 6 months, I have been fairly deluged with articles, books, newspapers, clippings, letters, unpublished documents, and references for further perusal. As if obeying the orders of an unseen force, well wishers, known and unknown, have seen to it that my crash course in Black Uish history should not be wanting in resource materials. Even the senders of hate and hostile mail have fit into the plan, for their clippings have been useful and informative. I would especially like to thank the following for documentation, mostly unsolicited, which they have generously provided: Dr. Anderson Thompson, Dr. William Strickland, Dr. Michael Williams, Dr. Leonard Jeffries, Dr. Molefi Asante, Elombe Brath, Legrand H. Clegg, Esquire Steve Coakley, William Jackson Bay, Lisa Davis, the Historical Research Department, Vibes Magazine, Lenny Brenner, Steve Bloom, Dr. Leo Bertley, Nzinga Ratibisha, Heru, Bill Jones, Ernie Stanley, and Juanita Harper. I have deliberately left out some names because I feel that their positions may make them particularly vulnerable to pressure. For those that I have inadvertently omitted, and there must be some, my heartfelt thanks. That's what's up. To my students at the Wellesley College who have studied the secret relationship between blacks and Who's for 2 semesters now, I found nothing wrong with it and have stood fast against the onslaught, and my heartfelt thanks. To my students at Wellesley who have gone on record in the print media, on radio and on television in support, my heartfelt thanks. These include Again, in the risk of inadvertently admitting some, Camilla Yassin, Nalita Lassett, Donna M. Chandler, Nia Higginbotham, Tanya Jarrett, Sarah E. Miller, Tanisha R. Landry, Adrienne Williams, Carolyn Ebanks, Nicole R. Phillips, Talia V. Shirley, Diane Holmes, Joyce Stiles, Marisol Rubicindo. I wanted to say it like that, so excuse me. Wendy Lawrence, April Towner, Cynthia Gibbs, April Thomas, Christy Jordan, Leslie Surrett, and Shayna Jordan. To Latrice Atkins, the great general of the student effort, extra special thanks and praise. To the student committee who put together a fabulous celebration of my 20 years at Wellesley in the midst of the onslaught. Mere words will not suffice to thank you. Thanks anyway to Latrice Atkins, Tanisha Landry, Aziza Yazin, Susan Epps, Talia Shirley, Sarah Idris, Christy Jordan, Debbie Santil, Faye Holder. All right, I'm starting to take it that Wellesley College was an all girls school. Gail Rock, Sarah Miller, Diane Holmes, Carolyn Ebanks, Mickey Wade, Tracy Key, Tracy Pilgrim, Tanya Samuels, Shayna Jordan, Rhonda Gray, and Joy Okram. To my Wellesley colleagues, Terry Tyler, with your brave self, you deserve a medal. Awfully nice. Maybe I will commission one. To Donna Jameson, Deborah Powell, Boyd, and the other alumni over my 20-year sojourn at Wellesley who called, wrote, networked, and in some cases even visited. You are the reason for my 20 years here. That's awfully heartfelt, man. Real talk. Many thanks to the organizers of the Harlem Support Rally, Elombe Brath, Robert Harris, Marcus Garvey Jr. Heartfelt thanks to the organizers of meetings in other cities, Chicago, LA, Miami, Washington, D.C., Baltimore, Oakland, Toronto, Buffalo, Boston, Brooklyn, and elsewhere. Heartfelt thanks to the many sisters who turned up at the Academic Council to show solidarity. Thanks and praises to Jennifer Paul of Galenstone for giving me a campus voice when the Wellesley News would not. Many thanks to Kelly Nelson of Campus Radio WZLY for also providing me with a campus voice when the Wellesley News would not. Many thanks to the Wellesley News, which refused to publish my statement on my own behalf. Thanks to you. 2. You are obeying the dictates of a mysterious fate. My statement, published as broadside number 1, had a much greater impact than it would have. Buried in your stuffy and pretentious pages, from your stupid actions to broadside number 1 to the I was doing so well, to the Jewish onslaught, there runs a line of continuous development. I now have a substantial file of support letters from around the country and overseas, from as far as Norway, most of them from people I do not know. Disgust at the Jewish onslaught is wide and deep, more so than I myself could have ever imagined. Several of my correspondents copied their letters to various Wellesley College officials or to the mainstream press, invariably in vain. My gratitude to you is deep, and to Susan Samantha Epps, chief of many things at the Majority Press, it could not have happened as quickly and efficiently without your help. Written Tony Martin, Wellesley, Massachusetts, August 28th, 1993. That's all we're going to have tonight. But at least this right here is warming you up for more chapters. I'll possibly make another one tomorrow. If not tomorrow, before the week comes to an end, I'll make another one for you. We'll do chapter 1. We'll conclude chapter 1. But just wanted to get you guys buttered and toasted up for the onslaught, the series that we're going to continue with. And with that, family, Rumble and YouTube, I wish you guys nothing but the best. Health, wealth, love, joy, prosperity. Most of all, wisdom. Keep your eyes open, keep your ears open. Wisdom, wisdom, wisdom. And with that, I love you. I'm out.